Hello and welcome to episode 126 of the Player 3 podcast. I'm your host, Luke Croft, and alongside me, we have the always visually stunning Larry Hunt.
Hi.
Things are looking a little weird today because we are in Larry's house and I forgot the camera, so we are doing this off of my webcam. Smash that like button. It's such a bad angle.
It is.
It's up towards us.
I feel like I gotta lean toward it to offset it.
We've got a good show ahead of you as Larry gets closer and closer to the camera. We're going to be predicting the Game Awards, going to talk a little bit more about the Battlefront 2 loot box stuff, and we're going to talk about our holiday wish list. So I figure at the beginning of the episode, give people a little bit of an expectation of what's going to come later on in the episode, and then we can get into it. Anyway, Larry, my friend, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. A friend came over today, helped me fix my car, and blow all the leaves in my yard. And then some loser showed up. Want to do a podcast. But the great news is, I feel like you're serious about this podcasting thing now.
Finally. It took 126 times of us doing it.
I think you're dedicated.
Yeah.
And this is where you announce that this is the last episode.
Yep, we're hanging it up. No, we're going to continue doing this until the day I die.
Oh, wait. Who is that? What's it start with?
I have no idea. It's not Atreyu.
It's not Atreyu.
It's not the guy who sings Sitting on the Dock of the Bay.
Nope.
Otis Redding.
Did you know that Otis Redding wrote and originally sang R-E-S-P-E-C-T?
Mm-hmm. He was also murdered by his father. No, that was Marvin Gaye.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
What? Marvin Gaye was murdered by his father.
I know.
It
was like dark thing and then relief because he wasn't, but then more darkness because someone else
was, yeah. Anyway, we are the Player 3 podcast. We get together every Monday over here on twitch.tv/Player3podcast. Push it out to you on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, and YouTube, doing some stuff to make the YouTube transition a little easier so that you can have that. Didn't have a show last week because it was Thanksgiving. Larry, let's talk about Thanksgiving a little bit. I love Thanksgiving. What are your thoughts on Thanksgiving?
It's fantastic. Also, Until the Day I Die was sung by Story of the Year.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which makes sense. Thanksgiving. So,
I spare my heart for you.
Thanksgiving, like many holidays, is amplified when your parents are divorced.
Right.
Because you get to go to many different places and enjoy food.
Uh-huh.
But on Thanksgiving Day, we just went to our mom's houses. And so at 1 o'clock, I ate a Thanksgiving meal. And then at 4 o'clock, I ate another Thanksgiving meal. And then at 8 o'clock, I had Thanksgiving leftovers. Yes. Man, it was good. But the highlight of the meal, my brother-in-law made these deer jalapeno poppers. So he had this deer meat that he had marinated. And he wrapped them in bacon with cream cheese and jalapenos in there with them.
Party foul.
Man,
sorry.
I ate so many of those.
Oh, man. That sounds delicious. I was actually going to ask what the best thing you ate over Thanksgiving was. So
we're on the same
wavelength here. But that sounds really, really delicious. Now, my choice is going to be a bit self-serving. So we did Thanksgiving with my sister and her husband on day one on Thursday. Because when you're married and there's a bunch of family, you have to think of your holidays in days. This is day one of Thanksgiving. So what's up, Saltiest Chuck? Welcome to the stream. He says thick beards with 2 C's.
My boys.
That's how the kids today. It's like fat with a PH.
No Shave November was a success.
Are you going to continue to let yours grow?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how long I'll let the beard get. So if you don't know this, I think Luke knows this. My beard is really just scaffolding for my mustache.
Yes.
My wife won't allow me to have it individually, so I have the beard so that by her standards I'm not creepy, but I can also still get all Sam Elliott up here on my upper lip.
I want to come back to that. Anyway.
Thick.
With 2 C's. With 2 C's. Thick. So, we went to my sister and brother-in-law's house. I made these awesome sweet potatoes. So, every year my mom is in charge of most everything that we cook. So my mom's mostly in charge of everything we cook, but she went and spent Thanksgiving with my sister, and she does these the canned sweet potatoes that like are all mashed up. It's mushy. Like they taste good.
There's some kind of
because you
juice
just
going
load
on in there.
Yeah, you just load them down and everything. I decided I'm going to do something a little more homemade, a little fresher. So I made these candied bourbon sweet potatoes. They were they were revelatory. They were life changing. So you take the sweet potatoes, you dice those things up. Yes, sir.
In the future, if you ever want the freshest sweet potatoes available, I can pull some sweet potatoes out of the ground and bring them straight to your table.
Oh, can you?
Just give me some heads up.
Do you grow them?
No.
In your backyard?
But a guy in my church does, who's always like, come get whatever you want. And I do.
I will keep that in mind because sweet potatoes are one of those things like you need to, the fresher they are, the better. I mean, I guess that's everything, but for sweet potatoes especially, like there's something about buying them off the shelf. Like you have the canned and then the ones from the shelf are a little better, but I've had fresh sweet potatoes, especially at the places that like do sweet potato fries and stuff, and just over the top in terms of goodness. But anyway, so you dice up big chunks of these things, right? But you also make a sauce. And all it is it's butter, brown sugar, bourbon. That's it. You cook you boil and blanch the sweet potatoes. You you boil the sauce for a few minutes to cook the bourbon out. Pour those over the sweet potatoes. Bake it in an oven for about 40 minutes, and they were just Had them the next day as well. Even better, yes sir.
Is there a particular bourbon?
I used Larceny. I think it would have been good with like a Maker, something a little kind of on the sweeter side.
I didn't ask what crimes you committed. Haha, dad jokes.
Oh my gosh, I hate you. Let's see. And then Salty as Chuck also says, I just changed job careers. Just hearing about it. So
congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Unless you didn't want to.
Yeah.
And then condolences.
But I mean, if you found a job, congratulations.
That's true.
That's
in this economy?
Oh man, in this economy. So anyway, what else? Was there anything else just worth mentioning?
Just all of it, man. My mom makes a ballin' sweet potato casserole. So that was good. I gotta try your sweet potatoes though. That sounds awesome.
Why do we only eat sweet potatoes at Thanksgiving? Why is that not a thing?
Perhaps you do, but I don't.
Of course
I eat them whenever I can get them.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
so that guy who grows sweet potatoes, if you put those things in a dark place where they can't sprout, they'll last for a long time, like when you dig them straight out of the ground.
So I'm going to bring this up on the podcast. We're probably going to need to talk about this in far more detail off. I want to do a Friendsgiving / Christmas thing with all of us getting together, possibly at my house. You grab some of those sweet potatoes from the man at your church and then bring them to my house and I will cook you up some delicious sweet potatoes, some candied bourbon sweet potatoes. So, all right, Larry, you good?
I'm wonderful.
All right, well, let's get this week started like we get every week started with what have you been consuming?
What have you? I don't remember the song for that. I'm going to be honest with you.
It's because it was what have you been playing, and it used to be what have you been playing?
Oh yeah, I hate that song more than the others.
Okay, so what have you been consuming, Larry?
Thanksgiving dinner, am I right?
Oh!
But seriously, I actually have not played a video game this week.
I didn't play much of anything past Monday of last week.
Except Animal Crossing's Pocket Camp for about 30 minutes.
Initial thoughts?
I'm still in the tutorial. That's something I hate about mobile games. So at first I was like, oh, this is just like every other mobile game. You got to do all these quests and help these people out. But then I realized that's how Animal Crossing was. So Animal Crossing was the precursor to that kind of game. And so I'm okay with it. But I hate the tutorial phase of those games because it's like hours of like, okay, you sent me to help one person. I get it. The game is about helping people out. You don't need to make me help like 5 people. I understand. I help. I get supplies. I build things. Just let me go. But I mean, it's going to consist.
That's not just mobile games. I feel like that's now I just started Assassin's Creed Origins, and I haven't played nearly enough of it to have any kind of thoughts on it. But one of my biggest complaints about all the older Assassin's Creed games is you would be playing for like 4 hours before you ever got to that like title card screen where it finally shows you the name of the game. It's like, have I legit been doing a tutorial for the last 4 hours of my life?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like you. Like, I've played an Assassin's Creed game before. Like, just give me maybe a loading screen tutorial of some of the new mechanics that you've added or whatever, and I can figure it out from there.
Yep.
So,
So that's all I've done game-wise. Movie-wise, I went and saw Justice League, and I really enjoyed it. I think Rotten Tomatoes, as time goes on, I find Rotten Tomatoes less reliable on the quality of a movie. Mm-hmm. Like, do I think it was a 10 out of 10? No. But this movie did not deserve 40 out of 100. It is not a bad movie.
I kind of feel like with the superhero movies especially, that's the way it's either this is incredible, amazing, nothing can beat it, or it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like, there's no middle of the road.
And I thought this movie, it was better than some of the Marvel movies. But, like, I feel like Rotten Tomatoes users have a Marvel bent.
I feel like most everybody does.
Yeah. I mean, it's slower than a Marvel superhero movie, but you just kind of have to expect that from the DC movies. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be nonstop action. Like, they're trying to tell a story. And I thought it was a good story. Enjoyable. Some graphic stuff I wasn't satisfied with, but overall, a lot of fun. You could see Wonder Woman again and hear that Wonder Woman song. And Danny Elfman did some of the music, or all the music, I'm not sure. You know who Danny Elfman is? Mm-hmm. So he helped with a lot of Tim Burton stuff.
Okay.
But it was really cool. So Danny Elfman did the music for the Batman movie Tim Burton directed. So you get tones of that old school Batman music running through it. Mm-hmm. And he kind of does a reimagining of that Wonder Woman song, which is, I mean, that's one of the best songs in a movie that's ever happened. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I really enjoyed the movie, and I'll be watching it a second time.
Okay.
And we've been working our way through The Strain still. Wonderful show.
So when you guys are traveling, so you did some traveling, visited some family over the holidays. Mm-hmm. How do you guys determine? Now I don't know. You and Jess have pretty similar taste in music.
Yeah.
So, but how do you determine who gets control of the radio? Like, what do you guys spend your time listening to when you're traveling?
Our taste is so similar that we just put her iPod in on shuffle, like, and that satisfies both of our needs. And mm-hmm. either one of us might skip a song from time to time. Like when Coldplay comes on, that's the one place we disagree. I really don't like Coldplay, mm-hmm. but she loves Coldplay. So some Coldplay songs I'll let it slide, but usually I'm like, next.
Look at the stars. I don't mind Coldplay. I like Coldplay.
I like a couple of their songs, but they're just not my style.
Yeah, so Lauren and I, it's a point of contention in our marriage because we do not have similar styles of music at all. Like, they're like in the Venn diagram of music I like and music she likes, they're basically just two separate circles, basically. So we've gotten to where I like to listen to podcasts whenever I'm on a long haul anyway, just because I find it more engaging and mm-hmm. distracting than just listening. I'm one of those guys, like when I'm running, you realize how short songs are. Like as you're running and you're like, man, I need to run for 30 minutes as a warm up or whatever for this workout. That was one song and it's only 3 minutes long. Like, you become hyper aware of time. At least I do. And so we've started listening to like Ear Biscuits, the Rhett and Link podcast, together. She actually enjoys Game Over Greggy, the Game Over Greggy show. So we listen to. So I keep backlogs of those episodes, especially around this time of year, so that we can actually have something to listen to together while we're traveling. So been listening to a lot of that. As far as playing, I finished the Call of Duty campaign, Call of Duty World War II. I really enjoyed it, man. I appreciated how, for the most part, you play as the same character throughout, and you form a bit of a connection with it. Now, a lot of the narrative is tropey, and but you're not expecting anything like earth-shattering in a Call of Duty campaign. But it was solid. It was very Band of Brothers-y. Had that kind of just like old school war movie feel that you would want from it. I thought the conflict between the two like commanding officers that you're under was actually pretty interesting and engaging for the most part. And I just thought it was solid. Thought it was really well done. I'm excited to jump more into the multiplayer of it now. One kind of complaint that I have, and I feel like the fact that it stuck out to me really means it would stick out to people who are more hypersensitive to this. I'm not much of like an explorer when I'm playing. I'm mostly just want to like mainline whatever I'm doing. But, they have like collectibles and stuff that you can try to find throughout your game. There's like times between objectives where you you have the time to do that sort of stuff. But the game is programmed in such a way that, like, if you're not on task for 30 seconds, somebody in the game's yelling at you to, hey, go open that door or get on that turret or pick this thing up or destroy that. And it's like, I'm not a completionist, and so it doesn't matter to me. Yeah. But if you're the guy who wants to take 15, 20 minutes to look at everything, I can see how it would get old really, really quickly. Yeah. But like they brought in where you need health packs and all that sort of stuff in order to regen your health, and I thought that was a cool little addition. One of the things I really like is, so there's all kinds of different functions your teammate has. Like one will give you extra ammo, one will give you extra grenades, one will call out where enemies are, one will give you health packs. So all these different functions. Well, in moments of the game where you may get separated or that person doesn't go on the mission with you, you don't have that ability available to you. So if the guy that gives health packs isn't on the mission with you, you're responsible entirely for finding your own health packs. So you kind of have to be aware of that. And I thought that was a pretty cool addition. But overall, I thought it was really solid, and I would recommend anybody to play the single player for it, which is something I wouldn't have done in past Call of Duty, in the last few Call of Duties, just because the world never really interested me.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, just jumped into Assassin's Creed, but don't really have a lot to say there. Started Black Mirror, the first season of Black Mirror. Watched the first episode. What a concept.
I've never... So, the only episode I've seen is like the first episode when Netflix picked
it up. Of the third season.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened in that first episode, but I have a friend who watched it. Was like, I decided that show was too gross for me.
Yeah. Salty as Chuck says, tweet me some podcasts. Like, tweet at me first, and then I will reply to you with some podcasts that I listen to. Tweet at me some genres you're into. I basically listen to things in all genres, but I commute an hour and 15 minutes one direction every day, so have a lot to listen to. Let's see.
Earlier, he was talking about Justice League. Said he heard that Joss Whedon did some of the reshoots, and Joss Whedon did take over when Zack Snyder had to step away. And I couldn't tell any like continuity issues, but Whedon's also credited with part of the screenplay, so I don't know to what degree. It seems like maybe he'd been involved a little bit beforehand, but maybe it was just rewriting a few things on the back end. I don't
know. He also asks if it's better than the Battlefront 2 campaign. I can't really speak to that. I have played about the first hour and a half of the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign, which isn't enough to really give you an idea of like how I feel about it. But just initially, that game is beautiful.
Yeah,
it's amazing how like, especially like the CG characters that they're not supposed to look human. Looks like it could have been taken just directly from a shot in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I've watched some videos and screenshots, and were it not for the microtransaction issue, I'd have that game right now. It is a gorgeous game.
So outside of that, the holidays, man, like just really eats into your playing games and watching stuff time. Been watching a lot of Celtics basketball, and we're great this year, Larry. So.
Good.
All right. We're not going to do releases of the week just because there's not really anything coming out this week.
Oh, hey, I got one last thing.
Uh-huh.
My wife and I listened to an audiobook on our way back from West Virginia called Culture Care.
The Gospel of John.
Culture Care by Mako Fujimura. And it's a book. So Mako Fujimura is an artist, a painter. And the book's written primarily with artists in mind, but not just for artists. But the premise of the book is how we need to stop engaging in silly, stupid, destructive culture wars and instead look for these ways that we can take care of culture, approach culture like a garden in order to produce the best outcome for everybody. So, good book, particularly if you are an artist. I think it's a really solid book. And it's written from a Christian perspective, but not in a way that it's beneficial only to Christians. So, check that out.
Salty as Chuck says, big patch for World of Warcraft. Salty.
You know what podcast this is.
Seriously.
We've talked about one PC game ever, I think.
And what is that?
I don't even remember.
I don't even remember what it is anyway, because we are not nerds, all right? We like games. We are not nerds. We don't play World of Warcraft. We graduated college, all right? I only say that because we know at least 2 people who flunked out of college because of World of Warcraft. At least. You may know more.
That's not even a joke.
Yeah, no, we're not even kidding. All right, Larry, let's move on to topics. Topics, yeah, we've got some topics for you.
Putting it all on the line on this topics.
Milkshake bet on the line today as we talk about the Game Awards, Larry. A lot of discussion to be had here. I'm very excited. So if you are just now listening for the first time and don't know what a milkshake bet is, it's basically a life or death scenario where we wager milkshakes on us being able to predict the future correctly. Larry is at a bit of an advantage because he is a minister and the Lord speaks to him. So I start with a +1 advantage. Is that
the Lord has told me?
He says PUBG will win.
God wills it.
So here's how this works. We have 10 categories. It's not a comprehensive list of everything that is going to be given awards
because we don't have 3 hours for this podcast.
Exactly. So we pick the 10 that we like the best and that we feel like we have something to say about. We are going to pick our winners. I have a handy-dandy sheet right here, and I think I had a pen, and I don't know what I did with my pen.
I've got a pen you can use if you want.
I'm going to put my... Actually, if you look in the front pocket big pocket of this bag.
This?
Yep. There should be a pen right there. And but we're going to pick our winners in each of these categories. We'll tally up our... should be just right there in that little pen pocket.
Oh, I got you. We got
pencil's fine.
Great.
That means I can change my vote.
Hey, what's this?
That is my Nintendo Switch.
Just going to set this on my TV stand real quick.
We're going to go over these 10 categories. We're going to pick our winners in each. I'll give the five or six nominees that are in it. We'll discuss why. And then if you want to play along at home, leave your picks in the comments below. And if you beat us, we will congratulate you. So, and Salty as Chuck says, I was kidding. Of course you guys are console plebes. We are. Mostly the reason we don't PC game is because we can't afford it. Can't afford to build a nice rig.
True.
And because we're not huge freaking nerds.
Even if I had a PC, I wouldn't play World of Warcraft.
That's true. I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't know where to start. All right, Larry.
I'd be playing some League of Legends all the time. I've been there.
Let's hopscotch around here. Let's start small and go big. All right. We're gonna start. Mm-hmm. We're gonna start in the genre categories, and then we're gonna move to kind of like the best art, best narrative, most anticipated. Then at the end, we'll save Game of the Year for that discussion. Now, within this, we are. Salty as Chuck says, Luke, I forgot my Twitter. I don't know if.
All right. What you need to do is just email Luke your credit card information, and from there he can get your Twitter handle.
And then I will send you the podcast recommendations there. Yeah. All right. Great. So the way this works is we are not picking what we think is like dessert, like what we would pick for it. We are picking what we think would win for it. And yeah. I'm sure that we'll make those distinctions as we're talking about it. So, Larry, is there a particular genre you would like to start in?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just start with best RPG because I think we won't have a whole lot of discussion about this. All right. So your 5 nominations for best role-playing game of the year.
But look, I don't even need you to read the nominations. The winner is going to be the 12th iteration of Skyrim.
Skyrim on Nokia Kyocera phones. All right. Here we go. Final Fantasy 15. Divinity, Original Sin 2, Nier Automata, Persona 5, or South Park, The Fractured Butthole. Larry?
Now, I think the only 2 contenders in this are, one, the South Park, The Fractured Butthole, and Final Fantasy 15. But I'm going to go with Final Fantasy 15. There's a Final Fantasy game every couple of years or whatever, but this one made a much bigger splash than Final Fantasy had made in a really long time. I think the new approach to the game breathed new life into the series, and so I think it's going to get it.
It's astonishing to me that this game isn't up for consideration, but it makes sense. I mean, it released in December of last year, right after the Game Awards, so it feels like it's been years since Final Fantasy 15 came out, though. So Saltiest Chuck has now put his credit card information in the chat. If you go back and you watch this on Twitch, you can keep up with the chat in real time as it was given, and you can purchase all the things. So, all right. I don't know. I think there's a couple contenders here, Larry. Persona 5, I think, is a big contender here. I'm not a big fan of the Persona series, but I know people who like that series love this game. However, I think South Park's going to take it. I think for them to kind of move into that like grid-based, turn-based combat, mix that with the humor and just the strength of the South Park IP and all that sort of stuff, I think it's definitely going to be the winner. So let me write these down. Larry picked Final Fantasy 15. Mm-hmm. I picked South Park. All right, moving on. Let's move on to Best Indie, Larry. Here are your 5 nominees. We have Cuphead, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Night in the Woods, Pyre, What Remains of Edith Finch.
I have a harder time with this one. Now, help me with this. Are these awards determined just by some committee, or does popular opinion go into this?
I think all 10 of the awards that we picked are by committee.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not very many of these that are based on popular vote.
I feel like Hellblade's going to be the critical darling in this situation, and not that it was a bad game, but I don't think it was a hugely popular game. Maybe I'm wrong there.
It came out last week. It sold 500,000 copies and is profitable sooner than they anticipated it being profitable. So they've already made all their money back.
Okay.
So yeah, it was pretty popular. It also came out at a really good time of year.
Okay.
And at a really good price point.
Well, I was leaning toward Cuphead, but that's because it made a pretty big splash this year. But I feel like Hellblade was just such an original concept that I think it's going to take this category. It's very unique.
Yeah. So for those who don't know what Hellblade is, you play as a woman named Senua, and you are in this it's based on Nordic mythology. You're in this afterlife, but it plays with the concepts of mental illness, and to the extent where they commissioned licensed therapists to work on the game so that they could help what's the word I'm looking for? Consult on the development of this. It's a game I definitely recommend playing with a headset on, because there's all these whispers of voices in your head that are going off as you play, and I'm with you on this. We're gonna agree. But to me, I think Cuphead is I think all 5 of these games have really, really strong arguments for it. I played What Remains of Edith Finch, and I thought from a narrative perspective it was interesting. I loved how each vignette in that game was a different style of game, really, different art style especially. But Hellblade being such a unique concept, tackling an issue that is far too under-discussed in today's world. Even though it's far more discussed now than it was even half a decade ago. We still don't talk about it enough, but the idea of mental illness. And I love when a game feels like it has something to say that isn't reactionary towards something else that's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This, it seemed like a passion project of people who really care about mental illness, wanting to put a spotlight on it, and not just piggybacking off of something that happened in order to sell games. So we're going to agree on that. So nobody will be able to lead, but so yeah, Hellblade. All right, Larry, let's move on to action, the action game.
Action.
Here are your 5 nominees: Cuphead, Destiny 2, Neo, Prey, and Wolfenstein.
I have some hesitance about this, so I'm going with Destiny 2. I keep talking first.
You're fine. Sorry. I'll talk first on the next one.
Okay. I'm going Destiny 2. I hesitate on it. I know I know several people who were really into Destiny 1 who were dissatisfied with Destiny 2. They expected something different out of it. But I think the changes that they made, although they may have alienated a little bit of their original fan base, brought in a lot more people that had an issue with the original game. Like me. I did not like Destiny 1. Just too much grind. And this game was more streamlined, simpler, and I enjoyed it. I think Destiny 2 is going to take this one. But I wouldn't be surprised if Cuphead takes this one either. So, but Destiny 2, that's my pick.
I lean in that direction as well. Game Awards are so interesting to me, especially in like such a broad category like this. Destiny 2 is a completely different game than Cuphead to be considered in the same genre. Like, how do you even compare the two games and the two experiences? And the same goes even with like Destiny 2 and Wolfenstein. Like, yeah, they're both first-person shooters, but Wolfenstein is this tightly told, narrative-based single-player experience, whereas Destiny 2 is this like sprawling, you know.
Yeah, I feel like Destiny 2 belongs in the RPG category more than the action category.
I feel like, so there's a new category, and we're going to get to this in a minute, called Best Ongoing Game, and it really discusses like games and services, and I think like that should be its own category.
Yeah,
you know, like, because I think comparing Destiny 2 to even a game like Final Fantasy 15 that's open world, quest based, whatever, like, it's still not a service game. It's still not a constantly evolving game. Like, it's still pretty apples to oranges within it. However, I think Wolfenstein's been a bit of a darling since its release. It's received a lot of critical acclaim. The Wolfenstein series has always been well known for its world building and storytelling, and I think Wolfenstein 2 has both of those things in spades. And I think all of those issues that you brought up with Destiny 2, that especially like its hardcore player base has a ton of issues with the game, and I don't feel like it's just a vocal minority. And the more I play it, the more issues I take with it, in the sense of where Destiny 1 had a lot of problems, I think Destiny 2 lacks a lot of heart. And I think they played it safe in a lot of ways, to where, take like the light level stuff, for example, not to get too in the weeds with Destiny 2. Destiny 1, your loadout, your equipment, your light level mattered so much in like Trials and Iron Banner and all of those things. Whereas it doesn't matter in any kind of PvP mode. Now, you see everybody running, you know, what's the Mida multi-tool, Mida, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody's running that regardless of the light level that it dropped at for them, because the perks are the best or whatever, and because they've just evened out all the stats for the weapons and whatever. And I think in a lot of ways it's lost its heart, and it's lost its ability to just get people lost in that the loot grind, the loot loop for it. So I think those issues mixed with how tight of an experience Wolfenstein 2 was, I'm going to go ahead and give this to Wolfenstein 2. You were about to say something.
I forgot. I was going to make a joke earlier. It's fine. But can I change my mind because you talked me out of it?
Yes.
All right, put me on Cuphead.
Okay. So what changed your mind?
You laying the issues out directly, because I have some of those same issues as well. So I guess I'm caught up in I feel like everything wrong with the story is fixed, but it came at the expense of the multiplayer is not as good as it was.
Yeah.
And what keeps you hooked into that game for the long haul is not the story, it's the multiplayer. Mm-hmm. So, and the grind.
I also think it lost a lot in the sense that, like, again, not to get too in the weeds, going from 6 to 4 in multiplayer and splitting up those fire teams that did so much together in Destiny 1,
yeah,
I think was more of a detriment to them than they thought. And the fact that we can't get a big group of us together and play the game modes we enjoy playing in Destiny 2. The only way you can play with 6 players is to play the raid. That's it.
Yeah.
And so you kind of lose that we're all in this together kind of feeling.
And we've always had a problem with like fitting people into a game. So I don't know, just when all games are trending toward including bigger groups, to take that step back and let's make it smaller, I think it was definitely a step backwards.
Yeah, the number of nights that we're just in a party so we can talk together while we all do different things is like,
yeah,
where we can jump on Halo 5 and play big team battle and like we're all together.
And honestly, that's kind of why I haven't been on Destiny as much since we beat the raid. Like, if I send a text out who wants to play Destiny and everyone responds in the affirmative, like,
yeah, we're kind of
now
screwed.
I've got to say no to somebody.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks.
And not to mention, once you're done with the raid, there's really not a whole lot else to do.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like, man, like I don't care about getting all the guns. I just want, and you like got all the raid set armor in your first run or whatever. But like, I felt like with Destiny 1, there was always something to try to get. Like you were always working towards something, and that's a big complaint a bunch of players have had too. So, all right, you went Cuphead, I went Wolfenstein. Let's move on to best action adventure game, Larry. Your 5 nominees in this. Big hitters here. Assassin's Creed Origins, Horizon Zero Dawn, Mario Odyssey, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Uncharted The Lost Legacy.
Before we discuss these, I just want to comment. It is so nice to see some Nintendo games in the mix again.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since we had multiples of those. I feel like seriously up for awards.
Yeah.
I just spit on your tablet.
Oh, it's right there. It's right there. Oh. I mean, it's a tablet. You can pick it up.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll kick us off here. This is maybe, I haven't looked back to like compare this contextually. This may be the strongest category of nominees I've ever seen in the Game Awards since we've been doing this podcast. And this is the 3rd Game Awards we've been. 4th? 3rd?
What year is it?
This is the 4th Game Awards we've covered. And I feel like this is the strongest category of nominees we've ever had. Other than Uncharted The Lost Legacy, I feel like any of these other 4 games can win, and I wouldn't feel like something was snubbed within it. In fact, and we haven't gotten there yet, the fact that Assassin's Creed Origin is not included up here in Game of the Year blows my mind. Because it's been critically super well received across the board. That being said, I think when it comes down to it, you have to look at a game and say, all right, there are games that we'll look back on 2017 and it'll be on the list. But then there are games that we'll look back on a console generation that'll be on the list. And then there are games that we're going to look back on gaming as a whole and it's going to be on the list. And that transcendent game is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Absolutely.
And I think Horizon Zero Dawn can have that transcendence. Especially once we kind of get deeper into the franchise and see, how that world is built out and fleshed out. But for right now, the only thing that I know will definitively be on the best games of all time list in the top 20 is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So for me, that's a bit of a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. See, I tend to agree with you. I'm torn between it and Horizon Zero Dawn. It was such a great game, but at the end of the day, I agree with everything you said. Like years from now, Legend of Zelda is going to be looked back on more than Horizon Zero Dawn is, I think. And the reality is that Legend of Zelda game is part of what brought Nintendo back from the brink of death. Mm-hmm. Like it is a console seller, mm-hmm. and Horizon Zero Dawn is a great game. And there are probably some people that bought a PlayStation for it, but at the end of the day, I don't think it was the same level of console seller that Legend of Zelda is. So, Again, we're going to agree. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's move on to Best Multiplayer. Here are your 6 nominees, Larry. And we have a little bit of a discussion coming with this. Call of Duty World War II, Destiny 2, Fortnite, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Edition, PUBG, Splatoon 2. Before we jump into discussing this as a category, the big thing that's been discussed since the nominees have been announced has been PUBG's inclusion for consideration for awards in general, but especially Game of the Year. What is your opinion on an early access game being considered among all these kind of more completed games?
I didn't realize it was an early access game. So it's not in its final state yet?
Right, yeah.
I kind of lean toward that shouldn't be. It shouldn't be until it's completed. And I recognize that would, in the long run, possibly be detrimental to their ability to win awards or whatever, but I kind of feel like you got to release your game at some point. Like, is this going to be another Ark? Like, is this going to be out for 3 years before it's really out? Mm-hmm. And at that point, is it still eligible to be Game of the Year? Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I lean toward, it probably shouldn't be, but it is, and I'm going to act like it is.
Yeah.
How about you?
I struggle with it because I think there's two different things to think about. Well, no, actually, no. I think these belong in the same category. An award show is just an extension of critical analysis of a game, right? Mm-hmm. And I think games should be eligible for review, quote unquote review, as soon as they start taking money from people to be able to play it. Mm-hmm. As soon as you think that what you're offering is worth somebody giving you any amount of money, we should be able to talk about it in a critical way, to put a number score on it or to put definitive thoughts together as to recommend whether or not to purchase, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about an award show, all that is an extension of the critical analysis of a game. Mm-hmm. So I agree with that to an extent. I mean, I think that to an extent. I also think a lot of these games on the list are not in their final state, right?
That's true.
They've gone gold. They're being sold for $60 or whatever. But, Call of Duty World War II constantly has server-side updates. There's going to be new map packs that are coming out. There's all kinds of stuff that's going to happen to this game between now and when it's done. Even more so, a game like Destiny 2 going through weekly changes.
Yeah. Overwatch won't look the same in 2 months.
Right. Overwatch is a totally different game than it was when it came out. So at what point are we saying a game is final? Just because it's gone gold nowadays doesn't necessarily mean that it's final. So for me, all that being said, I still think when you release an early access, you kind of use that as a crutch for the things that are wrong in your game. And as much of a phenomena as PUBG has been, there's still a lot of especially technical issues with the game itself. Mm-hmm. And when those get brought up, the thing is, well, we're in early access still. We're identifying these issues. We're patching them in and out. So I think while you're asking for money, you do deserve, your game is totally fair game to be analyzed critically. But I think as long as you have that moniker of early access to lean on, as far as when something is just legit broken in your game, you can say, well, it's early access. By the time we're going, I think that disqualifies you.
I agree with that, because that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's not fair to the other games. If something wrong with Destiny, people aren't satisfied with Destiny's multiplayer, they can't be like, well, it's going to be better down the road, and we're like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But with PUBG, oh, okay, it's fine. Well, either it's fine and you're not eligible for awards yet, or it's not fine and we get to include that in our review of you.
Right. So that being said, Larry, out of these 6 games, which do you think is going to take the award?
I had a hard time with this one too. At first, I was debating between Fortnite and PUBG, but then I realized those Nintendo games, people love those.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to throw Mario Kart and Splatoon into the mix, but at the end of the day, I'm really torn between Fortnite and Splatoon. Actually, Splatoon does not look enjoyable to me. I haven't tried it, but I know people. I've heard lots of people say it doesn't look fun, but you start playing it's actually a lot of fun. So I know people love it, but I'm going to go with Fortnite. I think that it combines elements of several games that have been really enjoyable and addicting to people over the years. It kind of has elements of things like Ark or that zombie game we played, 7 Days to Die. Mm-hmm. It also has elements of Minecraft in there. It's got elements of a multiplayer online battle arena, sort of. Yeah. And I think it's just, to some level, you could argue that it's very derivative, but I think it was deliberately, somebody was like, I really like all these things, and I'd like to have them in one game, and they sat down and they made that game. And I think that appeals to a lot of people, so I'm going to go with Fortnite.
Interesting. That's a dark horse. I struggle with this category because I think they all have their flaws,
I agree.
But at the end of the day, the goal of a multiplayer game is to attract a multiplayer base of players, of people who are playing the game. And I think you can't deny the fact there are tens of millions of people playing PUBG.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think it's going to take the award. And again, we're not picking what we think should win the award. We're picking what we think will win the award. And I don't think PUBG should even be included in any of these categories. But if it is, I don't think you can deny the cultural impact the game has had.
True. Even Fortnite took a game mode from PUBG, correct?
Yeah.
So
the Battle Royale mode
yeah.
itself.
That was a fun story.
I mean, I would love to see Call of Duty win it because when I play the multiplayer of that game, I'm taken back to playing Call of Duty World at War, and that was my favorite multiplayer experience. But it had all the server issues that I think and so do you judge these critically based on the experience as a whole, or what the experience should be in its proper state?
Yeah.
And so I don't know how you do that with Call of Duty, but yeah, like I said, PUBG. There's just no denying the impact.
I agree. I'd like to see Call of Duty have a shot at it, but I don't think those server issues can be overlooked.
Yeah.
I think about the Master Chief Collection. What a nightmare it was. In its ideal state, that collection was fantastic.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it did not launch fantastically.
All right, moving on, Larry. A new category, I think, right? I don't think we've ever seen this category before.
Which one?
Have we? The best ongoing game.
Oh yeah, that's new.
Okay.
And I've got a comment on that.
All right. So best ongoing game. This is basically for the best game as a service. And so just to give you an idea of the scope of the category, here's the 6 nominees: Destiny 2, GTA Online, Overwatch, PUBG, Rainbow Six Siege, and Warframe.
I think that it was really nice of them to design a specific category to make sure Overwatch could keep getting awards. I'm going with Overwatch. It's no secret if you watch this podcast that I have vocally had lots of issues with Overwatch lately. But for all the issues I have, there's still lots of people enjoying the game. And it's a game where I don't think anyone else on that list puts the same level of effort into making sure new stuff is always happening and tweaks are always being made. And I may not agree with all the tweaks they made and all the changes that they make, everything that they do, but they're dedicated to making this ongoing game an enjoyable experience moving forward. I think they've had some missteps lately, but I also think Kaplan can still correct course with this. And for every one of me who got mad and quit playing the game, there are 5 other people who are still loving it. So I think it's going to take this award.
Salty makes a great point. He says Destiny 2, best ongoing, for something that just came out. We literally have not seen an expansion for Destiny yet.
Yeah.
You know? And by the time the Game Awards happen, the first expansion will come out, but I don't know if that gets taken into account or how that works. But I don't understand how you can include a game that is really in its infantile stages next to a game like Overwatch or like Grand Theft Auto Online that has just completely matured and come into its own. So I think Destiny 2 is an automatic out because of that.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways,
if it wins it, I'll actually be upset that they picked it.
In a lot of ways, I think PUBG is the same way, and not just because of all the reasons that I think PUBG shouldn't even be considered for awards, but also just in the sense that it's still in its infantile stages, and the changes it's making, or is it making it because it's a game as a service, or because it's an early access game that they're trying to tweak and make into its final version or whatever. Yeah. So I think those two are automatic outs for me. Now, what that leaves are 4 games that I think could easily win it, even including Warframe. Warframe was a free-to-play game that launched alongside the next-gen console, so it's been out for 4 years. They're constantly adding new stuff. And I know that it's got a really big and really dedicated fan base as well. I don't know enough to speak to it, in particular, but I know that it's something that has that solid fan base and continues to grow. Rainbow Six Siege is a great kind of case study because it's a stronger game now than it's ever been.
Yeah. And
that game kind of raised itself from the dead a year after it released, to the point where it was selling something like 300% more year to date. Or year over year. I think you make an interesting point with Overwatch that it is something that's constantly becoming stronger and constantly taking into consideration its community, which is something that I think is just incredibly important for a game as a service. But I'm going with GTA Online with this because it is the sole reason that Grand Theft Auto 5 remains in the top 10 NPD years after its release. And they are constantly adding new stuff. They saw that PUBG was popular. They were like, hey, we'll add a battle royale mode. They take things that they see their community doing and turn them into, company sanctioned game modes in it. So I just think as a community, this is the GTA Online is the reason we don't know anything about a GTA 6 or anything like that. And it's been something kind of revolutionary for Rockstar as a company. So I think that's what's going to get my vote. So let's see. Salty as Chuck says GTA 5 could take it because of the amount of longevity it's had for role-playing on Twitch and because of the online constantly bringing people back. Do I think it's amazing? Not really, but I definitely see them taking it into account. And that's exactly what I'm saying. It always has something new that brings people back. Whereas Overwatch, the arcade modes that they add, to me, in my opinion, are kind of ancillary. The skins and those stuff, they're cosmetic. They're not making super fundamental changes in the sense of like adding modes that people are going to jump into and that sort of stuff. So that's the only reason I don't give it. I'm not thinking Overwatch. All right, Larry, moving on. Best art direction. We have 5 nominees: Cuphead, Destiny 2, Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I'll start.
Okay.
I don't see how Cuphead doesn't win this award. Now, I do want to give some credit where credit's due. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, not just in terms of it as a whole being transcendent, but the world that they were able to build on a console that lacks the power of some of the other next-gen consoles is still incredible to me. Mm-hmm. Just the amount of things that you can do in that world and how they made it look so good and how they really use that kind of not cel-shaded, I don't know necessarily how to describe that art style, but how they used it to really serve its own purposes while creating an RPG that competes alongside some of the most realistic and it competes alongside a Horizon Zero Dawn. And it doesn't take anything away that it's not as, graphically intense. But in Horizon Zero Dawn, again, insane beautiful world, beautiful world.
Did you see the snow?
Yes, where they animated the grass underneath it.
Yeah, you move the snow and there's animated grass down there. What?
Crazy. Cuphead, however, is just a labor of love by a small team who hand-designed every single stage of that game. They didn't just mock up digitally the characters and the boss fights and all that sort of stuff. They did that the way that they did it in the 1920s with old Tex Avery cartoons. And I just think that's just incredible to me. So I don't see how Cuphead can't win this award.
This is another category where I feel like everyone on there deserves something. I agree with you with Legend of Zelda, what they were able to do with that art style. I feel like that art style was partially chosen because of the limitations of the console, but it doesn't feel like it was chosen because of the limitations of the console. They did really well with what they had. Horizon is just gorgeous. Everything, just when it comes to realism, that, I think that's the best game on the list right now. Destiny 2, Salty as Chuck says, WTF again, literally doesn't even have an art direction. It's just another FPS. Battlefront looks 10 times better. I actually have to disagree there. I think Destiny is a gorgeous game. You've got these big open landscapes. Sometimes it's not gorgeous when it's not supposed to be, but you've got these post-apocalyptic places. But you have these crazy alien worlds. I think it's a really good-looking game.
Yeah.
The armor in it, just the vast array of options you have on what your character looks like with being able to shade the different armors with all this multitude of different shaders. You can only carry 50 at a time, implying there are more than 50 to have. Yeah, Jess ran out of room for shaders. She had to delete some. And the gun design in that game, my favorite gun is the Vigilance Wing. And I recognize that's not even the best gun I have, but I use it because it's my favorite gun to look at. And I know that's silly, but same thing with the sword I have. I initially chose it because I liked the look of it, and it came to I came to appreciate its attributes as well. But I think it's a great game as far as the art style goes. But I do come down the same place you did. It's between Cuphead and The Legend of Zelda. And I have such a hard time choosing. See, I was sold on Legend of Zelda until you said what you said. I had no idea that they like animated those the old school way. And I think just the originality of that will probably win them that category. So I'm going to agree with you there.
All right, Larry. Next category, best narrative. So this goes to the game with the best story. Here are your 5 nominees: Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Horizon Zero Dawn, Nier Automata, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Wolfenstein 2.
I zoned out. What category are we in?
We are in best narrative. That means best story.
Thank you. And what are the nominees again?
Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, Horizon Zero Dawn, Nier Automata, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Wolfenstein 2.
All right, so I admit that I don't know nearly enough about Nier Automata to be making a fair assessment here. I think Wolfenstein probably has its attributes, and punching Nazis was in this year, so I think it has that leaning in its favor. But just I haven't had a chance to play this game, but the little bit I've gotten to watch, the videos I've seen, and just the knowledge that your wife was glued to the screen as you played it, I'm going with Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm betting they're going to win this one.
All right. I loved the story for Horizon Zero Dawn. I think telling a good story in an RPG is one of the most difficult things to do, just because there's so much that can distract from it as far as side quests and just exploration and things like that. So telling something tight and concise and that makes sense and draws you in, and I think is really difficult. And I thought Horizon did a really good job of that. I'm with you on Nier. I don't know Nier enough about it to make a fair assessment. Wolfenstein 2. I just love the world of Wolfenstein, and I think back to when Wolfenstein: The New Order came out back in 2013, 2014, whatever. Hearing how they went to historians and they didn't just say like, "Hey, what was music like in 1940s Germany?" But then they went to like composers and said, "Imagine what German music would have looked like 10 years from then. Okay, what would it have looked like 10 years from then?" And like developed music in a way that evolved alongside. It wasn't just we're going to rip out music from the 1940s and just put it into today, but we recognize that this part of culture evolves. How would it have evolved had Nazi Germany won? And I appreciate those little like nuanced things. However, I think what makes the narrative powerful is its ability to draw you to something outside of the narrative itself. The most important stories that we tell in just regular life are the things that point at some sort of moralistic or life lesson end, right? And with that being said, I think Hellblade has a story that serves its purpose far better than any of these other games do. And I'm not going to rehash everything I said, but in its ability to force the conversation past Hellblade and into the world of mental health. So right at the beginning of the game, you're told that every time you die, there's this like infection on you that will grow, and at a point it'll consume you. And it kind of caught some flack because at the end of the day, like you could die as many times and it wouldn't delete your save like it said it would. But when you think about it, paranoia and OCD, like all those sorts of things, bring about a certain level of like, it's like a hyperactive sense of your own demise coming about, and like even that served its purpose. It struck a conversation and it went beyond the game, and so for that I think Hellblade is going to take that award too. All right.
Salty as Chuck says that was nearly a good joke, Dad.
I'm not your dad. Larry, most anticipated game. We're down to our last 2 categories. Here are your 5 nominees. God of War, Spider-Man, Monster Hunter World, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us Part 2. You kick us off.
For me, there are 3 real contenders on that. Granted, people are looking forward to all of them. I'm looking for the list.
It's right here.
Yes. All right. But I think the 3 big contenders here are God of War, Red Dead 2, and The Last of Us Part 2. And I was really torn between Red Dead 2 and The Last of Us Part 2. Just the excitement when that Red Dead stuff was just starting to come out. Like, we all want that game. Mm-hmm. But then I think about The Last of Us and just how important that game was to gaming as a whole and what a story it told. And I feel like most people weren't expecting a sequel. I remember when that trailer started, like everyone went ballistic. Yeah. and so I'm going to go with The Last of Us Part 2.
All right. I think this is a category that's difficult to judge because Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out in the spring. We don't know when The Last of Us Part 2 is coming out. Because I'm the same way as you. I look at this list and I mark off God of War. I think Spider-Man could possibly win it. Monster Hunter World I don't think is in consideration here. But Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out in the spring. The Last of Us 2, you have no idea when. And I think Rockstar does such a good job of managing the hype that when it releases, like, this game's going to sell gangbusters, right? So I'm not going to go much further in my argument than just the fact that you get more excited about something when you know it's definitively coming. And not that we don't think The Last of Us 2 is going to release, but we just don't know when. So I'm going with Red Dead Redemption 2. All right, Larry, last category. Game of the Year. Little award called Game of the Year. Here are your 5 nominees. Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, PUBG, Super Mario Odyssey, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
So, on this one, I will legitimately be infuriated if PUBG wins this award. For the reason.
So write your name down next to PUBG?
Yes. It's very difficult. Horizon Zero Dawn, Legend of Zelda. Again, it's great to see 2 Nintendo titles. We got Super Mario Odyssey in there. I think the Mario game is great, but I don't think it's going to take Game of the Year. I think it's really going to come down to Horizon or Breath of the Wild. And I can't make my mind up. Again, I think Legend of Zelda has that staying power that Horizon maybe doesn't quite have. It's the console seller. I would like to see Horizon win it, but I think it's going to be Legend of Zelda.
All right. We're tracking the same exact way here. I think Horizon is the start of something huge. And I think we're going to get a few games into Horizon, and we're going to be talking about it being as transcendent as Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But there are almost 30 years of history behind this game. And the realization of what people knew this series could be in with Breath of the Wild. In the huge open world, go explore, do what you want. This game is transcendent. It's an all-timer. I don't think Horizon is an all-timer. I think it's a great game. Don't get me wrong. I think it deserves to give as much competition as it can to Breath of the Wild. But at the end of the day, we can definitively say Breath of the Wild is going to be transcendent.
I think my grandkids will play Breath of the Wild in an emulator, but not Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm not going to recap if you want to know what we picked. Yeah, go ahead.
Salty as Chuck said, I think Breath of the Wild has to take it. It was just so popular when it came out and had glowing reviews.
Now, so did Super Mario. Super popular, 10 out of 10s across the board. But again, I know it's Game of the Year, and I don't know if that maybe changes the discussion a little bit because it's not the conversation isn't supposed to go past 2018.
Yeah,
past 2017. But I think it's really difficult to separate those feelings about Breath of the Wild. So, all right, Larry. Milkshake bet on. Handshake. My hand's real clammy. All right, let's move on.
About our first date or something?
Yes, I am. Let's move on to the news.
With the podcast, guys. An hour and 4 minutes into the show.
All right, first item on the list here. U.S. State Representative says Star Wars Battlefront 2's loot boxes are predatory. This is from Tamor Hussein over at GameSpot. It says, United States politicians representing the state of Hawaii have condemned the use of loot boxes in Star Wars Battlefront 2, describing it as a predatory practice that can take advantage of vulnerable people. In a press conference, State Representative Chris Lee said he was taking action in order to, quote, ensure future protections for kids, youth, and everyone, end quote. Larry, what's the difference between kids and youth? You're a youth minister.
I actually do draw a distinction. I would consider youth once they hit the teen years and the kids to be younger than that.
So youth is adolescence?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here's his quote. Quote, this game is a Star Wars-themed online casino designed to lure kids into spending money. It's a trap. I see what he did there. This is something we need to address to ensure that particularly kids who are underage, who are not psychologically and emotionally mature enough to gamble, which is why gambling is prohibited under the age of 21, are protected from being trapped in these cycles which have compelled many folks to spend thousands of dollars in gaming fees online, end quote. Larry, you work closely with kids, with adolescents, with the youth.
I do.
I think you can provide some unique perspective on this. So what are your thoughts?
Kids have no self-control. Like, for real. That sounds like a joke I'm making, I know. But seriously, like, the part of your brain that deals with decision-making, like long-term consequences, considering consequences, does not exist yet. Well, I shouldn't have said that. It's not fully developed yet. Right. And so thinking through immediate benefit versus long-term benefit, it's not something kids excel at, or youths. That's why we think about teenagers making dumb mistakes all the time, like, because they don't, all they consider is what feels good right now, what is exciting right now, what is fun right now, and I think that he's right. Like, we've talked about this on the show before. The loot boxes are, without a doubt, it's gambling. You're spending money in the hopes that you'll win the big prize, and as such, I kind of agree that there should be a limit placed on it. That I like his ending there. Toward the end, he says something along the lines of, "We need to talk about whether these things need to belong in games targeting kids or in games at all." And I don't think kids should be able to just blow a bunch of money on these things. And furthermore, gambling can be an addictive thing, and so you're possibly instilling an addictive behavior in a kid early on that's going to carry over into other aspects of their life, and I don't like that idea of it. But then I'm balancing that out with, I know that companies need to make money, and we've talked about that, and how if we want to stay locked in at $60, they got to be able to do something else. But there is no doubt that Battlefront 2 crossed, like, they didn't cross the line, they took a flying leap over it with a rocket-powered hang glider. And so there was something that was sort of questionable and difficult to wrestle with that EA I think just broke for everybody. Like, I think this conversation is going somewhere, whether we want it to or not. And in some ways, at least, I think it's a good thing that this is being brought up.
I agree with literally everything you said. But to me, it doesn't even go that deep. To me, it's the fact that you're encouraging children to spend money, and oftentimes the credit card on file is not theirs. Mm-hmm. It's their parents. You put these practices and tactics in place, and they're running up credit card bills on cards that aren't even in their name, right? And like, I don't know how you combat this. Whether you have to have certain sort of account set up to allow, like on PlayStation, you have what are called sub accounts, and those are for minors. And I don't know if you can set that up in such a way, like on the PlayStation and Xbox side of it, like from a console developer standpoint, that just says like, hey, until this person is 21, these features will not be able to be used. And like, but what does that look like? Because then you're basically having to design two different progression systems. And for those that are under 18, do you put those kids on different servers? Can they only play with kids? Like,
and are they honestly going to sign on to their kid gamer tag? Like, how closely are parents actually?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I don't know how you combat it.
See, I think it's going to lead to the demise of the system. I think we're going to wind up forced back to, for better or worse, I think we're going to wind up forced back to, you pay this, you get this item kind of systems.
Right. And I mean, we've talked about that. I'm all about that, and I think that's totally fine. I kind of like what China does, what China did in the sense of you have to publish your drop rates in order to allow people to know how successful they're going to be. Belgium has brought this up in their parliament or whatever. They put it on the gaming commission's radar to say we need to talk about this. UK came out, said it's not gambling. I don't know how you get around to that conclusion. Because at the very heart of it, it's a game of chance to try to get something that you're not guaranteed to get. Like, that's gambling.
Yeah.
And it's going to force the hand. But again, I think I said this on the podcast a few weeks ago. Just because you and I can't come up with a solution doesn't mean we can't address this as a problem. Yeah. I agree in a lot of ways in life that you shouldn't complain about something unless you have a fix for it. But my job isn't to fix this. I don't work for EA. I don't work for Activision. I don't work for any of these places. However, I do want to say this. Let's pump the brakes. All right? So a lot of stories came out over the last 2 weeks about just about like who was making that call. So Disney got really upset, and apparently they were the ones that told EA they needed to pull the microtransactions altogether because it was brand damaging. As big of a thing as Star Wars is, it's not immune to public perception or whatever.
Just to illustrate that point that you're saying, the Star Wars account, the official Star Wars Twitter account, tweeted like an advertisement in the midst of that for Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 comes out today, and if you scroll through the replies, most of them were some variation of, I'm not buying this game. Why are you letting EA run your brand into the ground? Mm-hmm. Like hundreds of people, well, probably thousands. Just so, yeah, brand damaging. I think that's a great description of it.
What's up, Krog8 Cow?
Krogate Cow?
Sure. Welcome to the stream. But then there were also reports, apparently some people from EA and honestly went to VentureBeat and said, look, we wanted to do a Titanfall 2 style system of it's just cosmetic stuff. But Lucasfilms came to us and said, we want you to do this within it. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like, okay, we got pretty animated about it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's house should be burned down. I don't even think Disney should step in and say to EA, we're pulling the Star Wars stuff. Like, apparently there's this big online petition, those powerful things, that everybody's signing that Disney should take away the rights for EA to make Star Wars games. And it's like, who else has the resources to do this justice if done right? Like, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. They've heard our complaints. They pulled the microtransactions. There's no way those microtransactions are going to get activated again in the way that they are today. I don't know what EA's planning on doing, but they know. People are too. This isn't an issue we get a month away from, and they're like, okay, now we can slowly start to work this back in. So for me, it's just, all right, we've set our piece. The change has been made. Let's pump our brakes and see how people respond. I think it's that simple. If you still feel, I'm still not paying for I'm still not going to buy the game because I don't know what it's going to look like. I'm going to wait to see what it looks like when they finally decide to put those things back in. But I don't know. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I just really dislike EA. And even if Disney was the one that pushed them in that direction, I just have a hard time with EA. Like, I cannot picture EA being like, all right, Lucasfilm, I really don't want to do this, but you're twisting my arm. You know what I mean?
I don't know. That's not a leap from me. Yeah. Like,
okay,
that's a powerful,
Oh, I'm sure Lucasfilm could make them do it.
Yeah,
but I'm saying I don't feel like they were as opposed to it as maybe they'd like to be considered.
Right. I think there's an in between.
Yeah.
I don't think it was oh no, we don't want to do that. Absolutely not. But I also don't think it was like we're gonna do this. We're gonna screw everybody over. Like, I think it was well, this is what we want to do, and these are the figures we can see. And they're like, well, if we did it this way, could we not do this? And they're like, well, I think there was a back and forth discussion, and I think at the end of the day, it may have been a pulling of rank.
Yeah, but where I'm going with that is, as far as where I come down on it, like, I know the online petition is not going to do anything, but with the question of who could do it justice if done right, I feel like they had one game to do it right and did a poor job, and then the release of this one was pretty not great. They canceled a game that seemed promising to move in a direction that we'll see. I don't know. I'd like to see someone else have a crack at it, but I'm also not gonna never buy an EA Star Wars game, but I'm with you. I'm not buying this one until I see what this is gonna look like.
Yeah.
When they implement it again.
All right, last item on the list, Larry. Eddie Mackich.
Eddie.
Boy, Eddie. Some interesting stuff going on at Playground Games. Article reads, Playground Games, the independent UK studio behind the Forza Horizon Racing series, is starting a new project that sounds pretty much completely different. Playground has now confirmed that it is working on a AAA open-world action role-playing game. Development on this project is being done out of a new 17,365-foot square studio space that Playground recently purchased in Leamington Spa, near its original studio. The game developer will refurbish the space and work out of its first 2 floors. Why do we care about the square footage and what floors they're going to be working from? Here's the interesting stuff. According to GI.biz, Playground hired Star Wars Battlefront 2 senior producer Sean Eystone to become the team's production director on the new game. Before Dice, Eystone worked at Kojima Productions for more than 5 years, contributing to titles like Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, and Ground Zeroes. Some of the other new hires at Playground include Will Kennedy, former designer for GTA 5 studio Rockstar North, and Juan Fernando de Simon, senior designer at on Ninja Theory's Hellblade. The developer's job site lists a number of other open positions for the open world RPG, including creative director and narrative director. And interesting stuff going on here. I love when companies say we're going to pull from pedigree. Like, here are games that are well received, other than Star Wars Battlefront 2. And we're going to put these people in positions to work collaboratively and make a great game. I know you're not a big racing fan, but the Horizon series are my favorite racing games on the market right now. Like, they do open world in a really, really fun way. And I'm interested to see what that company can do with a more traditional open world RPG style game.
Mm-hmm. So I said this to you earlier. I feel like open world RPGs are getting to the place where zombie games were in about 2012, 2013. Like, everybody's putting out a zombie game. Like, right now, everybody's putting out. So you had Destiny, you got that. EA's putting one out. I don't know what it's called.
Anthem.
Yeah, Anthem. That's coming. That Star Wars game got canceled. The narrative Star Wars game got canceled, so they can focus on an open world RPG Star Wars. Well, games as services, which I'm assuming is going to be an open world RPG kind of game. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but thematically, a lot of them are really similar.
Yeah.
It's a lot of dystopian, post-apocalyptic future kind of stuff. So I'm not excited about this right off the cuff, but looking at the pedigree of the people they have selected, I could see this being different enough that I could wind up being excited. Mm-hmm. You got a guy working on who worked on the Metal Gear games, so I think he might be able to bring enough weirdness to the table that this does not look like Destiny 2, Anthem, whatever. Yeah.
All right, Larry, let's move on.
All right.
To everybody's favorite segment, the random question of the week for the month for this week. All right, Larry.
What?
It's my random question. And my question to you is, what's on your gaming wish list? It's coming up to Christmas. And let's say you were from a rich family, you know? We can talk about what's realistically on your gaming wish list, but then we can expand. And if you could have whatever you wanted, what would you want? So, what are you actually asking for gaming-wise for Christmas?
I need a new controller. My favorite controller is the Titanfall 2 controller I got when the console came out. I love that controller, but it's starting to mess up. And it's been time to buy a new controller. Like, sometimes it just disconnects for no reason. But I keep using it because I just love it. It's a beautiful controller. And even when it ceases to be useful, I'm not going to throw that controller away. Mm-hmm. It's going to sit somewhere. Totally useless. Maybe it'll be a paperweight. But I'm keeping it. But the fact of the matter is I need a new controller really badly. So I've been looking. My wife has offered to buy me one of those custom controllers. So get whatever color and style I want to get. That's appealing to me. If I was from the rich family, I would buy an Elite controller. Just because what sparked this. So you remember me talking about how I didn't really see it as useful. It was kind of neat, but I wouldn't really use it. I wouldn't think. I thought that until last week, 2 weeks ago, when we went from Destiny to Halo. Mm-hmm. And I was like, gosh, I would be doing so much better right now if I could just map these buttons wherever I wanted to. Mm-hmm. I wish you could do that. Oh, you can do that for a price.
Now, Scuff is making a controller. So Scuff makes like $300-$400 controllers that are custom or whatever, but they are coming out with one that is between kind of the price of those customizable ones in the Xbox Elite. I think it's like $120. Okay. Has a lot of the same functionality as the Elite controller, so that may be something worth looking into. And also, I think custom button mapping is not something that is just for the Elite controller now on the new firmware. But I don't know that for a fact. Don't quote me on it. So
that could be life-changing for me.
Worth looking into. So for me, realistically, so my wife and I want to sell our house. Mm-hmm. So we're like trying to get a bunch of money from like Lowe's gift cards. So I normally just ask for GameStop gift cards and then go buy myself stuff, but I don't know if I'm going to be getting any this year.
Yeah.
But I don't really have a whole lot that's just definitively like on my normal one. I really want an Xbox One X.
Yeah.
I bought the new TV. Some stuff came up. It didn't happen. But I want to hook that beast up to my beast of a television and get everything I can out of it. I've been playing on my PS4 Pro, like Assassin's Creed Origins, Call of Duty. Looks awesome. But I know it would look even better on an Xbox One X. So that's definitely on my list. And I'm so finicky with like headsets. I'm really picky. Mm-hmm. And I really want to get one of those sweet like Astro A40 headsets or whatever, just to have something that I can just hang up next to my controllers and that just be my gaming headset. But I had the PlayStation Golds, and that's a pretty good headset. But the connection for the cord, like I'm constantly replacing that cord. Then I bought the Triton, I don't know which ones, but they're like clamped so tightly to your head that it gets really hot. I'm constantly playing with one ear out so that I don't die of a heat stroke. I've always wanted a pair of those Astros, and so if I was from a rich family, I would ask for a pair of Astro A40s. So
I do want that Destiny 2 expansion, and I might have my wife talk into it right as it launches. That would be ideal.
Nice. And that's next week, right?
Yeah. A Switch with Legend of Zelda and Skyrim. I held off on buying the special, the most recent re-release to the Xbox One.
Skyrim,
yeah,
Legendary, something like that. I don't know.
Because I was thinking if I do get a Switch, like that's a game I would love to have on the go.
Yeah,
it would be a blast. So that's on my list. I think that's all right now. Like there's not a whole lot that I'm after this year.
When you become an adult, it's more of just like, I just buy myself what I want, kind of when I want if I have the money to do it. I don't have to wait for a holiday to do it.
And I actually have more money to do it with when it's not the holiday.
Yeah, because you have kids.
Yeah, and we buy stuff for family, so
yeah,
it's more blessed to give than to receive, I guess.
Something like that. All right, Larry, who are you?
I'm Larry. You can find me on Twitter at LarryHuntsZombies. LarHunts Zombies.
I'm Luke. You can find me on Twitter at TK from Antioch. We're the Player Thief Podcast. Find us on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play Music, YouTube.com/Player3 Podcast. Tune in next week. We'll have another great episode for you. We love you. Player 3 Podcast! P3P.